when you guys hear the word act, I want you guys to start thinking about the word actual or actually. Because in a sense, that's what we want to see when you're on stage, is we want to see you actually doing something. We've talked about this before, right? That to act does not mean to pretend. It means to do something. But when I watch a lot of work, I still see a lot of pretending going on. When you see the word to act, I want you to think of the word actually or actual, to get you guys into the habit of actually doing the thing that you're meant to be doing in the scene. I see this happen a lot, particularly at the start of a scene, when an actor is doing some kind of activity, some kind of independent activity before the other actor walks in. Maybe I've given them something to do, because if you're if you're the character that's already in the scene, you're not just waiting for a scene to begin. You're in the middle of something else. Nobody just stands around waiting for a scene to begin or for somebody to walk in. You're in the middle of doing something. But what I often find when I give somebody an independent activity, they begin to try to do it or pretend to do it rather than doing it. So there's something weird that happens, right? Like we know from particle physics that like the act of observation changes the behavior and the nature of the thing being observed. There's an energy that comes, like if we are looking at an electron, whatever it is that they use to observe the electron changes the behavior of the electron. And there's a kind of an energy that you guys are giving me right now just by observing me that is changing me. Like I can feel my own kind of sense of self-consciousness being up here and the fact that the camera's rolling and I'm talking to all of you guys. So it's why, your work at home is always going to be better than the work that you do when you're up in front of the camera, because no one's observing you. We actually have to relearn what it is to be natural while being observed. It's very easy to say, just be natural. Just, do what you would do. But it's a different beast entirely, because somebody is watching, and immediately, where does your attention go? Back onto yourself. So we know that one of the remedies to that kind of self-consciousness is to get your attention off of yourself onto anything else, whether it's the other person, whether it's something in your environment, or whether it's something in your mind's eye. But when I used to do a lot of theatre, one of the things that I used to do before every show, particularly when we would just bump into the theatre and you're just, maybe you're going through tech run and you're just starting to get used to the space, is I would spend a lot of time on the stage just to familiarize myself with it, just to start to make it my own. I remember someone once saying to me years ago, part of your job as an actor is to feel like you belong. Feel like you belong. Feel like you belong on stage. Feel like you belong in front of the camera. Feel like you belong in the scene. Feel like you belong as the character. Feel like you belong in the industry. Now, I mean feel like you belong both in terms of your mindset, in terms of actually what do you need to do to feel like you belong as an actor, because no one is going to give that to you. No one is going to come along and tell you that now you're ready and that now you belong. You've really got to give that to yourself. But I also really mean that quite literally, physically, that you want to start to feel like you belong up here. that this is your space. That when we're doing the scene, it's for you. It's your time. That time belongs to you. There's no rush. There's nowhere you've got to get to. You can just learn to be and to really be present in front of the camera. So, you know, as I said, when I'd be doing a play, I would spend time on the stage, just really like walking around, sitting, looking out into the crowd, noticing what I could see. One of the things that I think is a really useful thing to do, and something I might even encourage you guys to do tonight, before you do a run tonight of your scene, whether it's right before you do the run or whether it's while you're running lines with your partner, come up here. Just come on up. Spend a bit of time just getting used to being in front of the lights and the camera and your audience, your other classmates. Feel like you can just be here, that you can breathe here, that you can be yourself here, that you can do something that feels natural to you. If I were to film two actors, a really good actor and a bad actor, I could give them the same activity. Like, I want you to begin the scene by walking in, sitting down, picking up a book and reading. And you guys would see the difference between the good and the bad actor. The good actor reads the book. The bad actor pretends to read the book. Does that make sense? The good actor actually does the thing, invests in the thing, as Kev said. The good actor looks natural. It looks like life. The bad actor looks like they're trying to read a book. In a sense, you could almost put whatever they're doing in italics. They are walking, they are reading, they are sitting, they are talking. You could even say that there's a quality to whatever it is they're doing, that if the actor's walking, there's a walkness to their walking. If they're talking, there's a talkness. If they're reading, there's a readness. Your job is not to pretend, it's not to interpret, it's to experience. It's to do. If you experience it, the audience get to experience it too. If you're holding whatever you're doing at an arm's length, the audience will feel that arm's length as well. Like you're not really experiencing it, like you're not really doing it, like you're not really invested. We need to relearn how to just be and how to do simple activities like walking, talking, and reading while being observed. A really simple exercise that you guys could do at home is to set up a camera somewhere in your house and let it roll while you go about doing stuff. Whatever it is that you're doing that day, whether you're brushing your teeth or making your bed or making a cup of tea or folding the laundry. At first, you might begin to feel that camera observing you. But eventually, if you leave it running long enough, you'll forget that it's there. Kind of like reality TV contestants. You know, at a certain point, they just don't even notice the cameras so much anymore because they're just talking to the person in front of them. They're just doing the thing. Get used to being observed. Relearn what it feels like to just be natural while the camera's rolling. You know, we've been talking a lot about outsourcing, the idea of putting things in the environment, imbuing your environment with meaning or turning it in or looking at your environment or the other person in the scene through a particular filter so that you're not having to generate yourself as an actor, you're not having to generate yourself emotionally, you're constantly reacting to what's already there. I'm reacting to what I can see rather than pretending to react or just reacting to nothing that to something that exists only in my imagination. We can tell, right? Like it feels like bullshit when we're watching an actor pretend to react versus actually seeing what's there and using it. But obviously right now, if I was doing a scene that was supposed to take place in the backyard, this is not a backyard, and it feels quite artificial. What we want to do is actually begin to kind of accept the reality that we're in and to use what I can already see. But what I can also do is I can begin to imbue things or endow what's already there with meaning, or with a little bit of belief. Rather than just having to generate things out of your imagination, I want you to start thinking about attaching what is imaginary to something that is real. Does that make sense? I want you to start to attach what you've imagined or what you need to imagine to something that already exists in space, to something that is real and tangible. Who's best at imagining things? Kids. Yeah, kids are really good at using their imagination. And when they're playing, if they could find a stick, and that stick could become a gun. And if they don't have a stick, then what do they use?
A leaf.
They'll use their hand, their fingers, right? Or a leaf, sure. They might use a leaf. They'll use a leaf. They'll use the remote control. They'll use anything, right? But they'll immediately imbue what is real with something that is imagined. And they will ride with it. They will commit to it. You only need enough belief to feel something. You just need enough belief to get you over the line, to make it feel like this is real for you. We can do the same thing in here, in your auditions. You can just begin to imbue what is real with what is imagined. It will anchor your performance. It will make you feel more grounded. It will make what you're doing feel real because you're still reacting to something that's already there rather than having to conjure something up out of nothing. Does that make sense? I wanted to just read you a quote of Humphrey Bogart's about Spencer Tracy. Do you guys all know who Humphrey Bogart is? I hope you do. Bogey, yeah, from Casablanca. And he was, one of the great actors in the golden age of Hollywood. And this is what he said about Spencer Tracy, who was one of the other greats, who was married to Katharine Hepburn and was a friend of Bogey's. Humphrey Bogart said this: "As far as actors go, I'd say Spence is the best by far. I rate him tops. The thing about his acting is there's no bullshit in it. Spencer does it. That's all. Feels it, says it, talks, listens. He means what he says when he says it. And if you think that's easy, try it. Spencer does it. That's all. Feels it, says it, talks, listens. He means what he says when he says it. And if you think that's easy, try it." So he's acknowledging the fact that it's not easy to actually just do it because of the fact that you're being observed. And that's why we need to relearn. We need to reteach ourselves to do it, to say it, to listen, to be present when we're up on stage or in front of the camera. The more you have to pretend, the more you feel like an idiot. You just do. It's why I really don't like in-the-room commercial auditions. Because so much of the time, they ask you to just pretend, to imagine something that's not there. And then I begin to think, well, maybe I should have taken a class in mime, not in acting. I would have had a better shot at booking this job. Like, there will be a cup of coffee on the day, right? Like, you're not going to CGI it in. So why not have the cup of coffee there? Or what happens, you're meant to be eating a cheeseburger and instead you're eating a rice cracker. And the thing is sticking to the roof of your mouth and it has no taste whatsoever. And you're there pretending that this is the best thing you've ever tasted in your life. The more you have to pretend, the more you look like an idiot. So the good thing about doing like a self-tape at home is you don't have to pretend. Go get the cheeseburger. Get the cup of coffee. I'm not saying that this job doesn't have any element of pretend in it. Sometimes you have to pretend. But if you are pretending, do it sparingly. And as I was saying, anchor what is imaginary to something that is real. So maybe it's not a cup of coffee, but it is at least water. At least there's something. I mean, again, even the rice cracker is better than nothing. Although I would argue that it does stick to the roof of your mouth, and that can be really annoying. It's not the best, prop. Miranda Harcourt talks about one of Thomas and her daughter's auditions for Leave No Trace, and how in that one particular scene, there was a bunny that she was meant to be playing with. And she could imagine the bunny, or Miranda said, well, the neighbor's got a bunny, let's go get the rabbit. And they used the rabbit in the scene, and she booked the job. Use what's there. Use what's already there. We've talked about this before. If the door's there, there's the door. You don't have to imagine a different door. If I'm talking about the beach, I know it's in that direction. The only thing I would say about actually going to the location is that it can become distracting for casting. They start to think about what's happening in the background, then you're sort of worrying about light and sound and, people interrupting your shot. But look, I mean, nobody knows anything, like William Goldman said. And if you're inspired to do it, I don't know, maybe give it a try. What you could also do, something that Miranda would also suggest, is at the very least, maybe go to the beach and run the scene. So that you know what it feels like to be at the beach. So you just start to get that muscle memory. And then you could bring what you've discovered back into your self-tape situation. But the beach might be a character in the show, maybe, but also what does the beach, what is the beach giving you? What does it represent? Maybe what I could also imbue, for me personally, the beach reminds me a lot of my mum, because when she's here, when she's in Australia, she swims every day. And so this can also be really interesting, is that I could presence in the scene my relationship with mum. That when I'm looking out at the horizon, I'm not just thinking about the horizon, I'm thinking about mum. That may not be appropriate for every scene, but sometimes it is. And sometimes that little detail or that nuance adds something, adds a color that nobody else is bringing to the table. Like, what does the location represent? How does that impact you? You could presence that. If you get a chance before you do your scene tonight, come up here. Get comfortable. Spend a bit of time. Notice what you can see. Take the time, if you are doing a scene that takes place in the backyard or on the beach or whatever, to endow or imbue what is imagined with what is real. So that you don't have to do it in the middle of the scene. Build the roller coaster before you ride it. Don't try to ride the roller coaster and build it at the same time. It won't work. You'll fall off. Build it. And then if you've built all that stuff in, then you can just go for the ride. Be in the moment and ride that roller coaster.